So, what are we doing today? Planet Hulk. Sure, why not? I'm just gonna be doing these survival challenges till the whole universe concaves upon itself and swallows us all up into a pit of fiery despair. But let's not dwell on the horrors of our own existence and push it deep, deep down into the pit of our fucking souls and just never fucking talk about it. That is how we as a species swim through the shark-infested piss that we call life. But I've wasted enough of your time. Let's get started. Now, some people might be thinking, Rouga, what the fuck is the matter with you? None of these characters can fight against the Hulk. What, did you catch a case of the tards? Did you become an autist? Fuck's going on here, Rouga? Well, you know what? Settle the fuck down and I'll fucking explain it to you. And no, I didn't catch a case of the tards. I don't even know any tards that can give it to me. As I've said in the past, if you want to scale Marvel Comics, you can't just scale it across all comics because every writer of Marvel has a different idea of what the power level of Marvel is. Some writers believe that the characters are massively faster than light. Some writers don't. There was actually an editor at Marvel that straight up said that no character in all of Marvel is massively faster than light, despite the fact that we've read several comics where that is not the case. Like, how the fuck can the concept of Silver Surfer even exist if he's not massively faster than light? That's just kind of the way this thing works. And due to this difference of opinion within Marvel Comics, people have come to the conclusion that Marvel Comics are very inconsistent. They're not. They're only inconsistent if you are reading several different storylines by several different writers over the course of many decades. If you just read one story by one writer, it's extremely consistent. Essentially, every time a new writer comes in and takes over a particular comic book, you have to sort of see it as almost a soft reboot of the entire series, which is one of the reasons I really don't like reading Marvel Comics that way. I just read one storyline and then I'm done, and then maybe I'll read a different storyline. I won't just continue throughout the years because the story don't make no fucking sense that way. So for this particular challenge, I'm literally using the storyline of Planet Hulk, and the only feats that will be taken are things that happen within the storyline of Planet Hulk. I don't care if Hulk destroyed a whole universe, a storyline before this. He didn't, but you know, example. If he didn't destroy that universe in this particular story, it is not going to be considered as a feat that he can actually do. The only comics that are going to be taken into consideration for the purposes of this video is Planet Hulk and Son of Hulk, because both of them take place on Skaar and are written by the same writer, so everything's pretty consistent. Also, I know that Hulk is on the thumbnail. That's really just so people know visually that it's a Planet Hulk storyline that I'm going over. Hulk will not actually appear in this video because the characters are essentially going to take Hulk's place on Skaar when he lands on the planet. They're going to go through the exact same storyline that Hulk went through, and we're going to see just how far they get. They're going to arrive through a portal from their universe, crash land on Skaar, and basically have to deal with all the same bullshit Hulk had to deal with. But obviously taking their own strength levels as well as characterizations into consideration when talking about exactly what they would do in this particular scenario. And that's it. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. So what exactly will our survivors face when they crash land on the planet of Skaar? You've seen Gladiator, right? It's that. It's basically just Alien Gladiator. That's literally what Planet Hulk is. You can take whole characters and plot points and rip them directly from Gladiator, and there's usually some kind of equivalent in Planet Hulk. But for the people out there who have sad, completely worthless, wasteful lives who have not seen Gladiator, I will explain what exactly Skaar is. It is a very warlike planet where there are a bunch of different species and alien factions that are constantly just trying to kill each other, and in control of the whole thing is the Red King, who is a total fucking dick, and he's totally cool with everybody warring with one another. He doesn't care at all. He actually thinks it's kind of entertaining, and as long as they're all serving him, they can fucking kill each other all they want, and he really loves the Colosseum. It's like his favorite thing ever. He likes pulling different people and enslaving people on the planet, throwing them in the Colosseum, and watching them fucking kill each other for his own amusement and entertainment. He himself is a total fucking bitch and not a warrior at all, although he does have a mech suit that he will get into and occasionally go down to the Colosseum and cheat by using a mech suit to fuck up people in the arena and sort of give himself this ego trip as if he's the greatest, most powerful thing in the entire planet, when in reality he's kind of a cowardly bitch who needs this mech suit just to fight. If your life doesn't suck and you have seen Gladiator, he's Commodus. You know how Commodus stabs Maximus at the end of the movie and they go to fight in the arena? arena and Maximus is wounded, and Commodus is like, pretend like, oh, I'm so awesome because I'm fighting Maximus and I'm winning even though I fucking cheated. And you got, yeah, that's the Red King. They're the same character, basically. He's a spoiled brat who's pretending to be something he's not. On top of that, you have many different races. There's the Imperial race, who are like these red aliens, and you have the Hive that has one queen that basically has millions and millions of children, and all the Hive are like super smart bug creatures that are also warriors on this planet. And then you have the Shadow Priests, which are gray aliens, and some of them have a connection to the old power, which is, without going into detail, basically like geomancy. They can control earth and rocks and shit. It's a little more complicated than that, and eventually is revealed to be an extremely powerful force that like rivals Galactus in strength, but most people can only tap into a very small portion of it, so it really doesn't matter that it's that powerful. Then there's giant fucking kaiju level monsters that are just out in the wilderness that fuck people up, and other large type of monstrous alien beings. And basically the absolute weakest thing that you could possibly fight on this planet is still capable of shattering stone with like a single hit. If you can't shatter stone with a single hit, you're not powerful enough to actually be on this planet. That's like baseline, your basic bitch weak ass soldiers can all do that. Now if you go up to the higher end of the stronger characters, you do have stuff like the Red King. Despite the fact the Red King is a bitch, his mech suit is actually pretty powerful. He has a bunch of like crazy fire powers when he's in his mech suit, and the fire is so powerful that it instantly incinerates every single person it shoots at, and considering that all these people are more durable than regular humans, that's particularly impressive. In real life, the only things that can instantly incinerate a human body are things like a nuclear explosion or standing under a rocket during takeoff. I mean, you have to be hit by millions of degrees to instantly be incinerated. And the Red King's mech has tons of different attacks that are all capable of doing this. He also has a sword that lights on fire and is of equivalent heat, where just slicing through someone not only instantly cuts through whatever it is, but it also cauterizes the wound instantly. And it's like this cool fucking flame sword thing. He also has this elite robot fighting force called the Death Guard, or a bunch of robots with flamethrowers, and these flamethrowers are just as powerful as the fire abilities in his mech suit. They instantly incinerate people, and he sends them into towns that are rebelling or whatever, and they just basically incinerate anyone. He just uses them anytime he feels that his power is under threat, and they just massacre lots and lots of people. I mean, at one point, this guy had a bunch of kids with a bunch of random women, and he was nervous that the kids might actually be able to take over once they get old enough, because they will be heirs to the throne. So he sent in the Death Guards to burn all of his own children alive so that he wouldn't have an heir, so that no one would be expected to rule once he's gone. Like, it would just be him forever. Despite the fact that I don't think this motherfucker's immortal. What a fucking dick. But none of that compares to his absolute strongest weapon, which is the spikes. The spikes are actually an alien race that need a host. Like, they need to absorb some sort of life force to stay alive. They're usually pretty cool dudes. Like, they're like, oh, can I absorb some of your life force to keep myself alive? You're like, yeah, sure. And they take a little bit and that's it, and they're good. They're not really bad guys. They're pretty chill. But the Red King actually kidnapped a bunch of them and then forced them into starvation, so they basically became these rampaging monsters. And then he just shoots them out over towns to infect a bunch of people. And basically what they are is that they're these little spikes, and he fires them into towns, and they drop down like rain, and they're impossible to fucking dodge because they're literal rain. Like, they're these little spikes that rain on top of people. And when these spikes hit you, they're strong enough to bury into the skin of the Hulk, and they infect the person, absorb their life force, take over their body, and turn them into basically giant monsters that then go around, attack other people, and infect. It's like a zombie infection if the zombies can like chuck buildings at people and you couldn't touch them at all. Like, you can't even touch the outside of their skin because you may get infected. It's a very, very potent infection. This is also why the Red King has all of these fire abilities, because he's paranoid that the spikes might actually be able to get him at some point. So the ability to just instantly incinerate things is his weapon against his most powerful weapon, which is the spikes. The spikes are basically the Red King's version of a nuclear warhead being dropped on a city. It means instant death for anybody there. Then afterwards, he sends the Death Guard in, and they burn up anybody who's turned, and boom, you eradicated an entire group of people without any real issue. You also have characters like his bodyguard named Kyra, who is known as his shadow. He calls her his shadow instead of bodyguard because he's fucking pretentious. And she has the old power. Not only is she capable of fighting against a weakened version of Hulk, but she has geomancer powers, and the strongest thing that she's shown being able to do is at one point she strikes Hulk in the chest with like this old power strike, and it causes a shockwave so powerful that it causes an earthquake in a 4-mile radius. Now, is this just a physical strength feat? No, she's controlling the old power. And up to this point in the series, she is the strongest user of the old power who's ever lived. Eventually, her kids surpass her, but they're not fucking alive yet, so that's not relevant. Throughout the entire history of Skaar, this is the single most powerful attack we've ever seen from any Skaarian person. So this would be the absolute maximum upper level of power. But it is directly stated that Kyra is not the strongest person on Skaar. The strongest person on Skaar is actually a man by the name of Axeman Bone. He's a member of the Imperials, but he's known as like a higher Imperial. You know, the fucking red aliens. And a higher Imperial is an Imperial that's born, it only happens 2 or 3 times in an entire generation, where they're born just physically and intellectually superior to all other Imperials. This is Axeman Bone. He's stated to be the absolute strongest, most powerful being on all of Skaar, and according to the Marvel, we call them lore books or stat books, whatever the fuck they're called, he is stated to be able to lift 50,000 tons. That's the absolute strongest person in Skaar. So anybody saying anything else, like Hulk was able to hold the planet from falling apart, and the Red King was able to fight it, I don't care. First off, Hulk didn't hold the planet from falling apart. He held 2 tectonic plates. Secondly, Hulk was extremely weakened most of the time he was on Skaar, and only got his strength back after he had already left the planet. Thirdly, Hulk defeated Red King super fucking easily, and was holding back in his fight with Kyra because he didn't want to hurt her and he actually liked her. He eventually marries her and she becomes his queen. There is nothing on Skaar that matches Hulk in power. Nothing. Not Axeman Bone, nothing. So trying to scale anything on Skaar to Hulk himself into anything that Hulk does outside of this storyline is just wrong. You're wrong. And as far as the challenges our survivors have to go through, that's about it. Don't be sad. This is a good day. I got to describe a challenge to you without making it 30 fucking minutes of the video. Be happy. Smile. I know I am. It's just a nice, simple challenge. Take a bunch of fantasy characters from video games and just chuck them into Alien Gladiator. How fucking simple and fun is that? So, you know, let's get into the survivors. So first up, we have Geralt of Rivia from The Witcher. Raised from infancy by a group of Witchers from the School of the Wolf and trained from that point in the art of monster murder. In case you're not aware, in The Witcher, Witchers are monster hunters. And Geralt runs around with a normal steel sword and a silver sword. He uses the silver sword to kill monsters because monsters in The Witcher are weak to silver. And he uses a regular sword to kill like normal people who fuck with him and need to fuck off. He's considered one of the most skilled swordsmen in his entire universe, on top of having many different signs, which are basically like magical abilities that Witchers are taught to help them survive against all manner of monsters that they might have to fight against. This includes things like Quinn, which allow him to create a shield over himself so that can actually reflect damage onto his opponent. However, the shield does have a limit, and if you hit it too hard or too much, it will eventually shatter, and that damage will go through and actually hurt Geralt. You have things like Igni, which allow him to shoot out like a stream of fire or just like one quick fire blast around his vicinity and just burn everything around him. You have things like Axii, which is basically like a Jedi mind trick where you can get people to do things for you. You can force them to fight for you and shit like that. And all sorts of other little useful magical abilities like that. The other main strength, and arguably the better strength that he has, are his potions. The potions can be crafted from all sorts of different materials and have all manner of different effects, many of which are arguably better than the actual magic signs. Things like making him practically immune to fire and heat, being able to see in the dark, increasing his strength, increases his speed, allowing him to breathe underwater, and just really anything that he might need. Due to his ability to craft and use these potions, it actually gives him a massive advantage if he knows that a fight is coming ahead of time, as he is capable of preparing for it and essentially drinking whatever potions he needs to drink in order to overcome whatever challenges might come. For instance, if he knows he's going to fight someone who uses poison, he can drink a potion that literally makes him immune to toxins, making whatever he's going to fight completely worthless against him. This is something he does often, and he has basically every potion you could possibly make completely memorized. On top of all this, his physical abilities are quite impressive. In the novels, he's said to move so fast that he looks like a blur to regular men, which is actually not a set speed. It depends on how far you are. For instance, if you're right in front of someone's face, you don't have to move as fast to be a blur. If you're a mile away, then you have to be super fucking fast to be a blur. So it's kind of an unclear sort of statement, but in the games, he fights a vampire who moves so fast that he breaks the sound barrier, and he's able to fight against that vampire on par. So at bare minimum, he's able to react to speeds that are faster than sound. He's strong enough to get get into a fist fight with a rock troll and knock out a rock troll. In case the hint of saying rock troll isn't clear enough, a rock troll is made of fucking rock. He's a big ass rock dude with a turtle shell and shit. Geralt is able to fist fight this motherfucker and knock him out. He beats him in a boxing match. And obviously if Geralt is using his sword, then his striking strength is even higher, so it's above the ability to knock out a troll made of rock. Durability wise, he's capable of being smacked around by all sorts of giant monsters and shit. He's fought dragons and giant sea creatures and all sorts of like building to castle sized monstrosities that he's capable of fighting against. He once had an entire windmill collapse on top of him while he was inside the windmill. It was a giant wooden building structure like tower thing, and the whole thing fucking fell on top of him, and then he just like got up and walked off. He very easily has small building level of durability and is capable through the power of his own will, skill, and determination overcome creatures that are significantly higher than small building, like dragons that can just lay waste to whole city blocks and even cities. And this is the part of the video where I get to shit on scalers a little bit. I don't like this concept that scalers have that makes no sense to me, where they say because a character beats another character that can do this amount of destruction, that means that this character has that levels of AP. Have you never read a fucking story in your life or watched a movie or show or anything? You've never absorbed art? Get the fucking stupid math out of your head. Stories are all about characters who are overcoming insurmountable odds and fighting beings and creatures vastly superior to them. If Geralt is small building level and he goes out and he fights a dragon and defeats the dragon by hitting it little by little and tearing it down and eventually being able to stab it in the heart or some shit after hours of combat and sweat and tears, that doesn't automatically mean he has the same physical power as the fucking dragon. The dragon is clearly stronger than him. They don't scale. Stop doing shit like this. Like the math you guys do, y'all always argue that it's just, oh yeah, no, this is the, like, Newton's third law. Shut up. No, you're fucking wrong. I don't care what you say. If I punch someone in the face, I do not have to withstand my own physical punching force in order to throw a punch that hard. That is an argument I have seen people use, that their durability would match their striking strength because they basically have to be able to take the recoil of their own attacks. If I punch a guy in the face and knock him the fuck out, I did not just take my own punch. That's not how it works, because that force that you're using is being applied to the ground, to your legs, to your torso, to your shoulder, to your arm. It's being spread over a large area. It's not like every time I throw a punch, I'm getting hit by my own punch. It doesn't make any fucking sense. When I shoot a gun, the gun is not taking the damage of being shot. Durability does not scale to striking strength at all, almost ever, because most people's striking strength would actually hurt them as well, considerably most of the time, and one character overcoming a much more powerful being does not suddenly make them the same level as that really powerful being. A dragon would kill Geralt in a single strike. Geralt will take fucking forever to beat that dragon and has to whittle down its health over the course of this massive fight. These beings are not equal just because he beat it. Stop it. You're fucking wrong. So how would the Witcher do if he crash landed on Skaar? Well, first off, like everybody, he would do pretty fucking poorly. When you come through the portal and crash land on Skaar, it saps all of your strength away. This is something that happens to everyone. In fact, the only person in the history who's crash landed on Skaar and was not instantly floored and passed out is the Hulk. The Hulk is stated to be the first and only person to be able to stand after entering the planet of Skaar. Silver Surfer also crash landed on the planet going through that same portal, and he was just completely knocked out. Like, he wasn't even conscious when he arrived. That's how badly it sucks away your power. So when the Witcher first arrives, he's gonna be knocked out. He is not as physically powerful as someone like the Hulk that he could stand. He's not even as physically powerful as somebody like the Silver Surfer, who was also passed out. So he's gonna lose a lot of his strength. And the Red King has a really bad habit of sending slavers to the points where people fall out of that portal so that he can take them and force them into slavery to fight in the gladiatorial arena, which is what's going to happen to Geralt. Geralt will essentially arrive at this planet and wake up in prison. He will then be forced to fight in the arena, and the general rule is if you can survive 3 rounds in the arena, you will be granted your freedom. Now, I'm going to give him a lot of his potions when he lands, but there is the problem that he's no longer on the same planet anymore, and he won't be able to get ingredients to make new potions. So essentially, he's only going to be able to use each potion once. So he kind of has to be smart with it. Basically, don't go around wasting your fucking potions, Geralt. So yeah, basically, he's just going to wake up a slave and force to fight in the Colosseum. But But before he goes to the Coliseum, he's going to get sent to the Maw. The Maw is an underground training facility where they take literally every slave they have, throw them all in an arena together, and force them to fight each other. And only like the top 5 or 6 people who survive in that arena are able to go into the actual gladiatorial arena. So is Geralt even going to survive something this simple? I personally think so. While he's physically weaker than a lot of the warriors that are going to get thrown in here, he's a lot faster than pretty much all of them. And he has enough magic and high enough skill, I think, to survive. And it's not like his strength is so much lower that he's not even capable of harming them. He will be able to harm them. He just won't be able to completely obliterate them with single hits like a lot of other characters can. He's going to have to fight really smart and be very careful. And if he does that, yes, he will be one of that small group that gets to go into the actual Coliseum. Once he does go into the Coliseum, however, it's going to be a totally different story. He's going to start fighting things that are a lot more powerful. He's going to have to fight like robots and giant monsters and shit. Now, while he's going to have a lot easier of a time than Hulk did, because the Red King had a legit problem with Hulk and was trying to get him killed in the arena. Like at one point specifically to kill Hulk, the Red King just parked an Imperial ship above the fucking Coliseum and launched a fucking laser that blew up the entire interior of the Coliseum that was specifically meant to wipe them all out, and Hulk just happened to survive. But this was stated by the announcer to be completely against the rules and something that doesn't usually happen in the Coliseum. This was specifically because of the Red King's grudge towards the Hulk. If Geralt doesn't go out of his way to physically attack the Red King like the Hulk did, which he likely won't, because he's not really a hit first and ask questions later kind of character, then he'll have to deal with very normal shit while he's in there. Things like other enslaved fighters, maybe a couple of monsters and wild animals, possibly a really big kaiju-like monster in the last round, but nothing anywhere near what Hulk had to face. And as far as him getting through all 3 rounds of the Coliseum go, I don't think I can give him like a 6 out of 10. It's more like a 50-50 shot, to be honest with you, because any one of the characters that he fights against could in fact kill him. They're all capable of hitting him. He's more skilled than they are. I think he'll get through round 1 easily just on his own skill. Round 2 is going to get a lot harder because he's going to have to start facing robots, and he's never had to like slice through fucking steel before. And fighting against these robots are going to make a lot of his magic not really that useful. He's not going to be able to control the robot's mind with axes. He's not going to be able to burn them alive with Igni. Quen will certainly help him a little bit at staying alive. I think the most useful sign here is going to be Yrden, which a lot of its benefits won't really be useful. It's basically a sign that he puts on the ground, and then anyone who steps in it gets slowed, blind, and causes massive pain. The pain and blinding part's not going to do anything to an army of robots because, I mean, you can blind a human's vision, fine, but will it disable a camera? Because that's what a robot would have. It would have a camera, not like a regular eye. So I don't think it's going to get the benefit from that part. But it does slow them down to like 1/10 of their normal speed, and he can lay down like 10 of these bitches. Not to mention they're pretty big and can actually catch a lot of people. So if he lays down enough of these, he can slow down whole groups of these robots enough that he can just have all of his friends kill them all. Like, he doesn't even necessarily have to deal with them if he's not actually capable of slicing through it. You know what? 50-50 might be too low. I think Geralt can actually get through this whole thing, which will then lead him into the final round against the massive kaiju. And here I actually think that he has a bit of an advantage because he's a character that's used to fighting against giant monsters. This will definitely be one of the strongest giant monsters he's ever had to fight against, but I don't necessarily think that matters. I mean, he's fought very similar monsters to this, and even if those monsters aren't physically as strong, capable of hitting him with the same level of power, the likelihood of him actually being hit by this thing is less likely than it otherwise would be since he's just so much faster. And just like the fighting the dragon example I gave earlier, he'll be able to hit it little by little, dodge, keep away, use his signs when he needs it to defend against things, and coordinate with his team to hopefully all together take out this giant monster. It certainly won't be as easy as it was for Hulk, who literally just jumped into the bitch and punched him to death. It's going to be a long, drawn-out fight, but I do think he can do it because there's really nothing here that tells me that this monster is too durable to be harmed by Geralt's sword swings. So overall, I'm still going to give him kind of like a 50-50 shot, but I do think that his experience with fighting these sort of things is going to allow him to overcome. Really, the biggest obstacle is going to be that round 2 when he fights the robots. Unlike in the Planet Hulk storyline, where Hulk was the strongest person in the arena and everyone sort of went behind him and allowed him to take the lead, Geralt's going to have to let someone else take the lead because he will not be the physically most powerful person in that arena. He'll just be a very skilled fighter, kind of on the same level as a lot of the other people he's thrown in there with. And if and when they get through all 3 rounds, this is where like the character shit starts to come in, because what happens at that point, right? The Red King requires anybody who wins all 3 arenas to bow down to him and essentially subjugate themselves to him, show their loyalty before he releases them out into the world. So then the question becomes, will Geralt get on his knees and essentially, even fakely, pledge his loyalty to someone as evil and as cruel as the Red King? I don't fucking think so. The Witchers in general in the Witcher series are completely neutral entities. They don't serve any king or queen. Geralt, throughout the entire history of the series, has never once bowed to anyone. Witchers don't bow. This means the likelihood that Geralt's gonna suddenly bow to this guy just to save his life, it ain't happening. He would absolutely never do that. What this means is that Geralt will be executed on the spot and not be allowed to actually leave the arena and gain his freedom, even if he does go through all 3 rounds. So the only other option I see is if Geralt can actually escape the arena before the 3 matches are over. So the question then becomes, is he capable of escaping prison? Well, it wouldn't be the first time he's escaped prison. I definitely think it's possible. I think that this would be a more difficult prison to escape from, but he could probably do something as easy as using Axii on one of the guards and have them open the door for him and then escape that way. I definitely don't see it as a complete impossibility that he can do this. He would then have to leave without getting caught, which he can because he is a master at stealth and he actually has potions he can drink that specifically make him better at stealth. So I actually think it's more likely that he'll probably escape the prison. Once he does that though, he'll become a fugitive of the Red King, and the Red King will essentially have him hunted across all of Skaar. His only option at that point would be to join the rebellion, which, yes, there is a rebellion on Skaar. It's not a particularly successful rebellion, but it does exist, and then help them fight against the Red King. But again, a pretty big problem that Geralt's gonna have is that he's just not that physically powerful. He'd essentially be just like another high-tier soldier in their army. He's not like the nuclear option that Hulk was against the Red King. Hulk was this unstoppable force that the Red King just straight up couldn't deal with. Geralt isn't that. If Geralt ever comes into contact with Axeman Bone or the Red King or Kaera, he's fucking dead. He can't fight against them at all. So where exactly does that even leave Geralt? Because in the Planet Hulk storyline, they make it very clear the rebellion will inevitably lose to the Red King. They don't stand a chance and they will be wiped out at some point. Hulk's introduction into the world is what changes the tide of that engagement and allows them to overcome and defeat the Red King. Geralt won't have that same effect. So if he does decide to join the rebellion, it's just a matter of time before he gets wiped out along with them. And if he decides not to and goes on the run, since he's not the strongest character that works for the Red King, it's just a matter of time before someone comes to hunt him that is too strong for him to deal with. Basically, he's on a fucking timer. No matter what, he's going to die eventually. The question isn't if he'll survive, it's how long. I think the absolute best case scenario for Geralt is if he just becomes like a hermit that lives out in the desert or the mountains or something and just stays hidden away from all life outside of the Red King's purview. Now, whether or not that's something that Geralt would ever do, that's a different story. He might go out in the woods, build a little cabin, hunt animals and shit, and just sort of survive out there as kind of like a survivalist. But I do think based on Geralt's lifestyle, he would find that very boring very quickly. So yeah, basically Geralt's fucked. Next up, we have Talion from the Shadow of series. Shadow of. Is that really what we're calling this series? The Shadow of? That's not a title. That's not even a phrase. It's a half a fucking sentence. We very badly need a better name for this series of games. For sure. Talion was an honorable ranger of Gondor before him, his wife, and his son were murdered by the Black Hand, which is like, I guess, sort of like the right hand or lieutenant of Sauron from the Lord of the Rings series. While his family was allowed to die, he was not. He was brought back by Celebrimbor, who forged the Rings of Power and forced to become a wraith, which is essentially this being that is in between life and death and just, well, can't die. Every time Talion dies, his body is rebuilt in whatever location his master desires, and by the end of the Shadow of games, he doesn't have a master. He is his own master, so he basically just comes back to life wherever he wants to. On top of that, he is granted a mass array of powers, from enhanced physical abilities to being able to do this crazy travel thing where he sort of like blinks. It's not teleportation, but it's like this really quick dash, like a ghost dash. He can control the minds of others. He can make people's heads explode for some reason. It's just a large assortment of different crazy wraith-like powers. Now, physically, Talion is very comparable to that of the Witcher. Some people is going to argue that he's significantly stronger because he fights characters like the Nazgul and shit that in the books scale to like country and mountain and all kinds of other shit like that. I don't know why you would try scaling them to the book versions. I keep hearing people doing that. This is not the book version. In this one, Shelob, who's a giant spider, is like a sexy woman in a black dress for some. Like, this is clearly not the same as the the books. Like, you wouldn't scale the characters from the movies to the books, so why would you scale the characters from this game to the books? I don't get it. In this, he's really just small building level. And the most impressive feat he's ever done is when he planted a flag in the center of this Coliseum, and it caused like a shockwave that knocked everybody in the Coliseum down. But it was a pretty small Coliseum, and again, even this is still just calculated to small buildings, so he's not that powerful. Despite being a relatively equivalent physical ability to someone like the Witcher, Talion is going to do significantly better on Skaar. This might come as a surprise to you, but having the ability to not die is particularly useful in a place where everyone is trying to kill you. For instance, I don't even have to go through the whole steps I just went with Geralt, where we have to see like how far will he get in the actual Coliseum after he gets captured, because it doesn't fucking matter how far he gets. He's going to get captured the moment he lands on the planet, just like Geralt did. But when he gets sent through the Coliseum, even if he dies immediately, he'll just revive somewhere else on the planet, wherever the fuck he wants to revive at, and everybody's gonna think he's fucking dead, because he did die. His body will still be there, and then he'll just form a new body somewhere else. It basically solves all the problems that Geralt was going to have. He's not even going to have people hunting him. No one's going to be aware that he's still alive. He can do whatever he wants at that point. Having said that, Talion is not the type of guy to just like not care about all of the horrible shit that happens on this planet. He's going to get involved. I mean, the whole plot of the Shadow of games involves him wanting to die and join his family. But despite that, he doesn't allow himself to do it because he knows that he has a duty back in Mordor to stop Sauron from doing all the horrible shit he's going to do. The fact that the Red King is bringing upon so much suffering and death and just horribleness to the planet Skaar, I don't see Talion being the type of person to just be like, nah, that's cool. You just live your best life, buddy. No, he's gonna want to get involved. Of course he is. He's not just gonna let this shit happen. And unlike someone like Geralt, the Red King really has no way of actually stopping him. Talion might not be able to bust through the front fucking doors of the Red King's palace and then murder the shit out of him because he's considerably weaker. But what Talion can do is the same shit he was doing in Mordor. He can take over people's minds, build a fucking army, and then go to war with the Red King. He doesn't actually have to kill him himself. Now, there is a bit of question of whether or not he'll actually build an army in the same way he did in Shadow of Mordor and Shadow of War. Talion doesn't view Uruks as actual people, because in that universe, they kind of aren't. Uruks are specifically designed to be evil and be servants for Sauron. They are made to be servants. Talion has no issues with murdering them, torturing them, doing all kinds of horrible shit to them because he doesn't really see them as people. And if you look at the story of the game and the character of Talion, everything outside of the way he treats Uruks is relatively honorable. So I don't necessarily think that Talion is just going to start mind fucking a bunch of random people like soldiers who are not specifically designed to be evil and then mentally enslaving them into an army. I just don't necessarily think he'll use the same tactics he did in Mordor. Also, you have the issue that he actually has to defeat whoever it is he mind fucks in a fight before he's capable of actually controlling them, which means he won't be able to control the most powerful people on the planet. Like, he can't defeat Axeman, Bone, or Kyera because they are physically more powerful than him, like significantly so. So even if he did go about this method of going to war with the Red King, he would only have a very, very large number of like basic bitch enemies. No, I think most likely what's going to happen is instead of fighting the way he did in Shadow of War, which was basically warmongering against the massive armies of Mordor, instead what he's going to do is fight more like he did in Shadow of Mordor before he built his army, which is basically guerrilla tactics. He's going to sneak into bases, poison food, do political assassinations, things like this. He'll get in, kill the people he needs to kill, and get out without anyone even really being able to tell he was there in the first place. And the crazy part about this is even if he fails and dies on the first attempt trying to assassinate the Red King, he has literally unlimited chances to do it because he'll just keep coming back to life. He will keep being able to try over and over and over again to kill the people he needs to kill in order to free this planet from the tyranny of the Red King forever, basically, without any limit to it. Now, will killing the Red King necessarily fix all the world's problems? No. The entire planet is just a bunch of different factions that are all wanting to kill each other. Hawk was able to stop all these problems by basically just saying, hey, if you guys want to fight, you'll have to fight me first. I'm gonna fuck you up if you don't stop fighting each other. And Hulk was so vastly more powerful than anyone else on the planet that they just listened because nobody wanted to deal with him. Talion's not going to be able to do that. And I don't think there's any one individual person he can kill that will just stop all the warring that happens on the planet. At that point, Talion will just be dragged into basically an infinite war that will happen on this planet forever, and he'll never get out of it. He'll never be able to end it, but at the same time, he'll never be able to turn his back on it either. And much like in the Shadow of games, where he literally spent decades warring with Mordor just to buy Middle-earth a little more time. In case you haven't played the game, that's basically what you do at the end of Shadow of War. Talion builds up an army within Mordor and fights Mordor, basically starting a civil war between his side and Sauron's side. And he does this just to buy everybody time and allowing Middle-earth to prepare for Sauron's inevitable invasion, because Sauron can't invade as long as Mordor is in the middle of a civil war. Talion does this for several decades until he is eventually corrupted and becomes a Nazgul, which he knows is inevitable, basically just sacrificing decades of his life so he could push back the invasion. While there's no massive threat of invasion necessarily, this is a very corrupt planet with a lot of people who prey on the weak, and Talion can become a hero for those weak people, helping villages in trouble, fighting off bandits, doing different stuff, and making little bits of difference here and there. Almost becoming like a Kane from Kung Fu type character, or like a Reacher type character, where you just travel around the country, running into different people who have problems and solving those problems. That's basically what Talion's gonna be. But like an immortal, deathless version who is constantly trying to find a way to kill himself, but never actually finding out how. Honestly, it'll be kind of a sad existence for Talion, but a really badass idea for a show. I'd watch that show. Next up, we got Edelgard from Fire Emblem Three Houses, and I know what you're thinking. Rouga, why the fuck would you pick Edelgard? Dimitri is obviously the best choice here. And my answer to that would be fuck you. Black Eagles for life, bitch. Three Houses takes place in a continent of Fodlan, where there are 3 countries that all sort of border one another, and they're all like super peaceful and happy. In fact, they're so peaceful and happy and awesome with one another that the royalty sends all their kids to the same fucking high school for some reason. That's like in the center of the continent, and that's weird. That's a weird. That doesn't happen, right? That's not like a thing. I don't think that's a thing. Anyway, one of these royals that go to the high school's name is Edelgard. That's who right now. That's who we're talking about right now, and everything just seems so amazing, awesome, and friendly, but there's like this fucked up shit that's right under the surface, right? Like the whole continent is just in love with this church, and the church is super fucked up and ruled by a dragon who like burns people alive, who don't believe in their particular religion, and kids are experimented on because there are these things called crests that you could be born with, and if you're not born with it, you're considered a second-class citizen despite how amazing you might be or how intelligent you might be. You don't matter if you don't have a crest. So it's also a very class-based system. Anyway, Edelgard doesn't really like it, so she starts a war, which seems a bit extreme. You know, maybe some protesting first and see how that works. It doesn't, but you can at least try it, you know? Anyway, the whole concept of the game Three Houses is that you get to play as one of these 3 factions. And no matter what faction you play as, your faction seems like the good guys and the other person seems like the bad guys. The only person that ever really comes out looking okay is Claude, and honestly, even he's kind of a piece of shit. The problem I have is that the vast majority of people seems to have played for the Blue Lions team, which is Dimitri's side. So a lot of people I talk to say that the Blue Lions are clearly the good guys and Edelgard is just a piece of shit. That's not the case, because if you play as the Black Eagles, which is Edelgard's side, she seems very justified in a lot of the stuff she does, and the Blue Lions and Church seem like the assholes. So you kind of have to play all of the playthroughs and make up your mind based on that of who's the good guy and who's the bad guy. Nobody's really good, but nobody's really pure evil either. I mean, Edelgard has legitimate reasons to start the war, and while she certainly does a ton of evil shit during this war, it's all very calculated evil shit. Like, for instance, one of the first evil things she does is that when she starts the war, she goes to the nobles within her own country, and anyone who is known to support the church, she drags them out of their houses and has them murdered in the streets. And the reason why she does this is because she doesn't want a civil war to break out in her own country while she's trying to go to war with the church. She doesn't need her own people turning on her. No doubt a super fucked up decision, but also kind of necessary. Like, what else are you gonna do? If you're trying to overthrow a church that is so evil it murders heretics on the spot, and half of the country who you're trying to use to go to war with them is on their side, they're kind of enemies of your army, right? Like, you sort of have to kill them. If the United States was going to war with the Nazis and we had a bunch of Nazis in our country, it might might be a good idea to murder the Nazis before you go to war with Nazis. I'm just saying, there's logic there. And this is kind of the way the whole game is structured. Dimitri does some really fucked up shit too, but when you play his game, you see that there's actual, like, you know, good reasons as to why he does it. Everyone's gray, everyone's fucked up, but everyone has good reasons for the things that they do. So don't be hating on Edelgard, okay? Team Black Eagles, baby. So in the Fire Emblem games, you get to actually choose what class all the characters are. So Edelgard can actually be any fucking class you want her to be. She can have magic, she cannot be a magic user, she can be a sword fighter, it doesn't really matter. But canonically, she does become a Flame Emperor and is the class Emperor. So that is the class she will be given for this particular challenge, which basically means she has absolutely no magic whatsoever, really high defense, and really high damage. The weapon we will be giving her will also be her canonical weapon, Amir, whatever this is. So how will she do once she crash lands on Skaar? I mean, she's getting enslaved, just like everybody else. There's really not much one can do to get around that. She's gonna crash land on the planet, be super weak just like usual, and she's gonna get thrown into the Colosseum just like usual. Now, there is gonna be one certain thing where her weapon will not be able to be taken from her. The way her weapon works is that it was specifically designed for her and can only be used by someone who has the Crest of Seiros, which she possesses. Anyone who touches it who does not have the Crest of Seiros, fucking like dies. So after they capture her and then someone tries to pick the axe up and take it as some sort of loot or whatever, they'll fucking drop dead. So they have no choice but to basically just leave the axe there. So she won't get her weapon in the actual Colosseum. She'll have to use normal basic bitch ass weapons that she finds once she's there. As far as how far she gets once she's actually in the Colosseum, she'll do fairly well. She's significantly more powerful than someone like Talion or Geralt. She'll actually be able to slice through pretty much all these motherfuckers pretty easily, and she's durable enough to take pretty much any attack that any of them try to dish out to her. On top of that, she also has really good leadership skills, as well as being a master tactician and strategist, which means she's sort of a natural leader to basically be at the forefront, kind of like Hulk was, and leading the other slaves who were forced to fight in the Colosseum with her. She'll also be able to very successfully coordinate with them and have them overcome whatever challenges that they do come up against, despite the fact that I don't really think she's going to need them all that well, because she's pretty much strong enough to slice through anything in that Colosseum. One thing that's for sure that there's really no getting around is she is going to fucking hate the Red King. Like, really hate the Red King. Like, more so than normal people would hate the Red King. She really doesn't like royalty abusing their power. It's kind of the whole reason she started the war in the first place. She will not respect this man. She will treat this man like shit. She may actually try to kill him at some point, which most likely will get on his nerves and will make him try to kill her in the Colosseum, much to the same way that she did with the Hulk. And by the end, when Edelgard is forced to get on her knees and actually basically submit to the Red King, yeah, she's not doing that. She doesn't even require her own subjects to do it for her. She's really not for all that shit. Honestly, chances are if he asked her to do that, she may try to attack him on sight. It's not going to work out well either way. So what exactly are her options here? Well, much so like Geralt, she kind of has to escape. But unlike Geralt, she doesn't have that many means to actually do so. Now, with her really good leadership abilities, it is possible that she'll be able to sort of build up a bit of a following while she's in prison with the other slaves and gladiators, and possibly build up enough of a following that she can sort of organize a kind of mass breakout, possibly. That's really the only way I see them actually being able to escape. If she can somehow manage to do that, then you still have the issue of the obedience discs and whether or not she can actually take them off. And this is sort of a massive plot hole in the original Planet Hulk story, but basically the obedience discs are shot on Hulk and everybody else's chest, and they're so powerful that they force Hulk into doing whatever it is they want him to do. And apparently he can't get it off of his chest. We never see him try, but apparently he just can't because he's enslaved by them for quite some time. At one point in the story, Hulk is fighting Silver Surfer, and during their fight, he punches Silver Surfer in the chest and it breaks the obedience disc, and Silver Surfer is free. Then Silver Surfer uses his powers to break all the other obedience discs. The major plot hole being, why didn't Hulk just break his own obedience disc? We see that he's capable of breaking them because he did it when he fought against Silver Surfer. So he didn't even try to break his own? He didn't even try to break any of the warbounds? Like, why didn't he just break them? Point is, because of this plot hole in the story, I have no idea what's stopping Edelgard from just like shoving a weapon into her own obedience disc and breaking it, allowing her to escape. Like, I don't know why no one in the story does this. So in theory, Edelgard might actually be able to break her own obedience disc, maybe. Because again, the story never gives a reason as to why Hulk doesn't do that. Maybe there is a reason, I don't know. If she is capable of breaking her own obedience disc, then yeah, I think that her odds of being able to strategize a breakout with all of the other prisoners goes up significantly. And then once that happens, you basically have a war. Edelgard's gonna go to the rebellion, most likely take it over, very much like Hulk did, but instead of her taking it over because of her massive power, which by the way, she is physically stronger than the vast majority of them, but she'll just take over because of her leadership and strategizing abilities. And then, you know, you got a war. Edelgard versus the Red King. Let's see who wins. And believe it or not, I actually do think that Edelgard has a chance of winning here. Like I said, her leadership abilities will make sure that she could probably expand and grow the rebellion way past the power that it was when she got there. And her ability as a tactician means she'll probably win most engagements that she gets into with the Red King. While I don't necessarily think that she's physically strong enough to take on Kyera in an actual fight, she doesn't really have to. It's a war. Nothing says this has to be a one-on-one fight. It was never a one-on-one fight in Fire Emblem, and it really shouldn't be here. It's a war that I think she has a very good chance of winning. Once Edelgard overthrows the Red King, she's gonna have way more problems to deal with. For one, all the different warring factions going on, she's not gonna be cool with that shit. She will absolutely do everything she can in order to stop all the civil warring and put everybody under one kingdom under her. To do that, she's gonna have to do a lot of fucked up shit. And as I've already talked about, she is very capable of doing that. She's gonna start slaughtering people, killing nobles, killing leaders. Basically, anybody who can't get over their bullshit and just be peaceful, she's gonna have to start taking people out. This is just gonna set her up as the new dictator because she is. And then what's gonna happen is she's gonna have to deal with Axeman Bone. So I haven't said this yet, but Axeman Bone actually isn't anywhere near like the kingdom that the Red King looks over. See, the Red King knows that Axeman Bone is significantly more powerful than he is. And as I said before, the Red King is a fucking poser. He couldn't handle not being the most powerful being around. So what he did was he sent Axeman Bone to the front line of a battle on the other side of the planet as far away from him as humanly possible. He did this in the hopes that Axeman Bone would die on the front lines of this war, but he kind of knew that that wasn't going to happen and just sort of settled with him being as far away from him as humanly possible so he doesn't have to constantly be reminded that he's actually a bitch and this dude can kill him anytime he wants to. In the comics, after Hulk becomes king, a bunch of fucked up shit happens and then the entire kingdom that the Red King looked over blows up in a giant nuclear explosion. Axeman Bones get really pissed about this because he actually does care about the kingdom and what happens to it. So after Skaar is about to become king, Axeman Bones says, no, fuck that, that's not happening. I'm not letting the son of the dude who let the whole kingdom blow up take over. So he came back and went to war with Skaar. And they got into a big thing. It was like a whole storyline. But basically, if Edelgard's running the kingdom in a way that Axeman Bone doesn't agree with, like, you know, being a dictator, he's gonna come back from the front lines and he's gonna go to war with Edelgard. Edelgard is then going to have to fight a second war right after she beat the Red King with a far more powerful threat that is Axeman Bone. And this battle, I don't think her tactics are gonna matter. Just like her, Axeman Bone is a general of the Red King's army and he's a very skilled tactician. I still think she's better and she'll be able to overcome his army, but I also think that that doesn't really matter because Axeman Bone is so significantly more powerful than she is. He could literally slaughter through their whole army by himself and then reach Edelgard and fight her. If that happens, Edelgard's gonna fucking die. Edelgard's very powerful. Characters in the Fire Emblem houses are capable of doing some very crazy stuff. They're basically anime characters, but they're not lifting 50,000 tons over their head. Axeman Bone is just more powerful. Not only is he more powerful, but he should be more skilled in an actual fight. Axeman Bone has been a skilled warrior capable of fighting the most skilled warriors on Skaar since age 12. Edelgard's good, but she's not that good. And that's really going to be the end of Edelgard's story. There's going to be like a first story that has a happy ending with her defeating the Red King, taking over, and then starting to fix the planet through super fucked up means. But you know, there's light at the end of the tunnel. And then Axeman Bone shows up in the sequel and fuck her in the ass with a train. Basically, Edelgard's reign will be about as long as it takes Axeman Bone to, you know, walk to the kingdom. I don't know, couple weeks, couple months, maybe. It ain't gonna be good. Last up, but certainly not least, we have Nightmare from the Soul Calibur series. a demon that's not really called a demon, even though he super is a demon, called an evil spirit that is inside of a sword that is used by a possessed suit of armor. Has all manner of crazy powers, from magical and power absorption to soul absorption to controlling souls to stealing souls to copying the fighting styles and powers of other people that he fights against to possession to all. Look, guys, he's a demon. I don't care if the series says he's an evil spirit. That is a demon. He does demon shit. If a demon can do it, Nightmare can do it. He's a fucking demon. Now, there is one thing I need to address. People really like to argue that this motherfucker is moon level, and like every single Soul Calibur character in the entire series is at least multi-continental. Bullshit. The reason why they think this is because there's a character that shows up named Abyss, and when he shows up, his dark, evil power is so just unbelievably amazing that he causes an eclipse. And people say, oh, well, he's strong enough to move the moon in the sky. And Nightmare is capable of fighting against this character, which means he's capable of moving the moon in the sky, and people are capable of fighting against Nightmare at not only full power sometimes, but also half power when he only has half a soul edge, and half of moon moving power is multi-continental power. So basically every single power level throughout the entire franchise all links back to this eclipse feat that they then just connect to every other character. Like if you go to the dreaded versus battle wiki and you see how powerful Nightmare is, it'll say that Nightmare is multi-continental because he fought against Ivy. But then if you go to Ivy, it'll say, oh, well, she's multi-continental because she fought against Cervantes. And then you go to Cervantes, it's like, oh, he's multi-continental because he fought Ivy. And it's like, bro, where's the fucking feat? So you sort of have to read like 40 different profiles and then come to the conclusion that, oh, okay, y'all are just like having the moon feat from the Abyss fight. Okay, whatever. Here's my problem with that. I don't consider this like a feat of strength or power. There's a lot of instances throughout all of fiction where a character shows up and their evil is just so intense that it corrupts the world itself and like causes eclipse and shit. But I don't think it's proper to look at something like that and just assume that that character can literally move the moon with like telekinesis or some shit. Like, he can't just take the moon and chuck it at the planet. That's not something he's capable of doing. It's just this sort of visual representation and storytelling of his evil affecting the world around him. But it's not a feat that's applicable in combat. No character does anything close to multi-continental on screen in an actual fight. It never happens. Nobody chucks a mountain or chops a mountain in half. Nobody fucking like destroys a whole town. Like, nothing like that ever happens. This moon feat is the only thing that comes close to that, and it's passive and is not used in combat against another person. So I think it's intellectually dishonest to use this feat and just apply it to every single character in the whole franchise. I mean, for fuck's sakes, it's written into the story that Mitsurugi goes to look for the soul edge because he cannot overpower a rifle. That's a massive part of his story. Mitsurugi can instantly be defeated when he comes up against anyone who has a rifle because he just can't fight against guns. So I'm supposed to believe that these people are all multi-continental? That goes against the story of the game. So having said all that, how powerful is Nightmare in the Soul Calibur universe as a whole? I mean, it's pretty good. Characters are capable of smashing through these massive stone columns, and they can smash through stone walls and castle walls, and Sophia can summon a lightning bolt from the gods that come down and rain upon her enemies, and Nightmare himself is capable of releasing this wave that he just sucks the souls out of a small army of people all with a single attack. He can shoot energy blasts, but really in terms of just physical stats, it's kind of like, you know, small building, maybe a little bit more. The strongest character physically in the game is kind of Astaroth. He sort of has the best feats, and his best feat is smashing the ground with his axe and then creating this massively long like canyon in the ground. Now, it's not like the Grand Canyon or anything like that. It's probably like a big ass crack that goes, I don't know, maybe a block down the way. It's a perfectly good feat. It'll make Nightmare do perfectly fine on Skaar. It's fine. It's good. He can clash swords with anybody on the planet. It's great. Not everybody needs to be these world-ending threats. It's fine, people. It's fine. So how will Nightmare do when he crash lands on Skaar? Well, Remember last time where I said that pretty much everybody gets enslaved because there's really no fighting against it? Well, I was full of shit because Nightmare can't get enslaved at all. The obedience discs aren't going to do shit to him for several reasons. For one, the way the obedience disc works is that it attaches to your body and then basically attacks the brain, destroys the brain when you disobey a direct order. But Nightmare's suit is just a possessed suit. There's no brain. There's nothing in there. Nightmare himself is actually the sword. Nightmare himself is actually the demon that is inside the sword, but it's not the suit of armor. They can try to fuck up Nightmare's brain all they want. There's no fucking brain there. And let's say for argument's sake that it were to work and they can control the suit of armor. He's not the suit of armor, he's the sword. So the moment Nightmare drops the sword, the suit of armor would basically just fall to the ground. They would then collect the armor and bring the empty suit of armor to the arena, and the first person to touch that really badass looking sword would instantly be possessed by the demon, and they would become the new Nightmare. The sword is the threat, not the armor. But having said that, I don't think it matters because the actual obedience disc isn't going to do anything to the suit of armor anyway. You have to actually have organs and a brain and shit for the obedience disc to fuck up. If you don't, you can't fuck it up. This means that Nightmare is the first character I've talked about in this video that's not going to the Coliseum at all. Like, let's say that Nightmare comes through the portal the same way Hulk and everybody else did, and he's greatly weakened and he's just passed out when he arrives. Okay, cool. That's that body. But once the sword is touched by someone else, Nightmare will now have a new body that did not pass through that portal, and he'll no longer be weakened. Really, any way you look at this, Nightmare's good. So now that Nightmare is on Skaar, just free to do whatever the fuck he wants in possibly a brand new body, possibly not. Really depends on how you want to look at it. What's he going to do? Well, he's going to do the same shit he always does. He's going to look to increase his power and kill lots of people. He's going to go across the whole world stealing souls and fucking up shit and looking for magic and different forms of energy that he could take to increase his power even more. And he's going to become a real fucking problem. And the main thing that's going to fuck not only Skaar, but just the Marvel universe as a whole is the old power. So I haven't gone into super huge detail about what the old power is, but basically it's an energy source that was created by the gray aliens, the shadow priests, that was meant to rival that of the power cosmic. It's so powerful that when Galactus knew it existed and tasted it, he thought it was like the greatest power he had ever tasted. It's so powerful that if Galactus were to eat a single planet that had the old power in it, it would sate him for over 100,000 years. This is directly stated in the comic and is a pretty big plot point of one of the stories. Now, the main limitation for the power cosmic normally is that most people can't control the full force of it. They can only control little bits of it, which is why it really doesn't seem all that impressive. When you finally do get a character like Hero Kala, who is capable of controlling it on a way larger scale, that shit gets fucking dangerous. At one point, Galactus comes for Skaar to eat the planet so that he can get the old power, and Hero Kala waits for him to arrive. Once he gets there, Hero Kala willingly gives him just a little bit of the old power so he can get a taste of it, and then after he eats it, Hero Kala manipulates the old power inside of Galactus's body, and for the first time in Galactus's whole existence, he actually feels pain. It's described as infinite, unbearable levels of pain that Galactus just straight up couldn't handle. Hero Kala did this on purpose and essentially threatened Galactus, saying, you can eat this planet, you can go after the old power, my power, but just know you will feel this pain till the end of eternity as long as this is inside of you. He threatens Galactus that he will cause him insurmountable pain for all of eternity, and Galactus just fucks off. He doesn't want it anymore. He just leaves. This is the insane power that Hero Kala has over the old power. Now, if Hero Kala was in this challenge, then Nightmare might run into some bigger issues than he otherwise will. The problem is that Hero Kala is the son of Hulk and is only born after Hulk goes to Skaar and goes through his whole adventure. Since this particular challenge has Nightmare replacing Hulk when he drops down to Skaar, Hero Kala isn't actually alive yet. He's not even born, and he won't be. So there's no one in existence that has this level of power over the old power. Now, why is this important? Well, because Nightmare is capable of absorbing souls and really just energy in general. And the old power is made up of all of the souls of everyone who dies in Skaar. They go into the old power, become a part of the old power, and they enhance the old power's strength within the planet. Skaar is a very warlike planet, and lots of people die, which is why it has a significantly higher level of old power than most other planets. So since it's an energy source, and since it's basically just made up of a bunch of souls, both of which Nightmare can absorb, Nightmare should be able to absorb all of the old power in the planet. And since Hero Kala is not alive, who has has the strongest connection to its basically in existence, there's really no one who could stop him from doing that. That means that the moment Nightmare finds out that the old power exists and attempts to absorb it, he will become a basically Galactus level threat within the Marvel universe. And Nightmare's base power level and insane amount of hexes that he has means that there's really nobody who can kill him on the planet very easily, and even those that might be able to stand a chance will have to attack him pretty much immediately before he learns about the old power. The moment he learns about the old power, which is going to be pretty fucking fast because pretty much everyone on the planet knows about it, Nightmare will instantly become way too powerful for anyone to deal with. He'll absorb all the old power, basically destroying the planet, essentially getting a power that is basically the same as the power cosmic, and then the entirety of the Marvel universe will open up to him, and he can just travel around the universe doing whatever the fuck he wants. If he wants to hunt down more old power, he can do that. If he wants to just go around stealing souls, he can do that. He can do whatever he wants. He's going to be a cosmic level threat at that point. He will essentially be a vastly more powerful version of Hero Kala, who was so fucking dangerous that Hulk literally had to make a deal with like a god to come down and stop him. Hero Kala was able to take on the entire Hulk family by himself with ease. And this is Green Skaar Hulk, not Savage Hulk. This is the version of Hulk that bitch slapped the fuck out of Zeus. Like, this is a strong version of Hulk. But to be completely honest with you, even if he doesn't absorb the old power, which again, he will, he still really can't be stopped by anything on Skaar. I mean, the planet is not shown to resist really any of his hacks that he's capable of. I mean, again, the dude just absorbs the soul of an entire army of people just by raising his hand real quick. Any army that the Red King sends after him is going to be completely wiped out instantly, and Nightmare is just going to get stronger when he absorbs that power. You also have the fact that he can copy powers and fighting styles of anyone he fights against. So even if someone like Kyera or Axeman Bone is physically capable of fighting against him, they won't be the moment Nightmare actually sees them. He'll gain their strength levels, their fighting skills, their knowledge, and then just become too powerful for them to deal with when added on top of his own. And it's not like Nightmare's copy ability works like normal copy abilities. It's not so much that he's copying your fighting style directly, it's more so he's taking all your knowledge of combat, your style, everything, and he's incorporating it into what he already knows. So Nightmare has the style of Siegfried, but when you play as Nightmare, his moveset is not identical to Siegfried because he incorporated Siegfried's style into all of the other styles, the hundreds of thousands of styles that he already knows. So his style will always be slightly different and also significantly superior to whoever it is he's fighting, because he knows everything you know and also everything everyone else knows at all times. Basically, every single person he comes into contact with is going to make him stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger, not only because of their soul absorption, but also because of just copying their general power at all. Like, even if he doesn't have the power of the old power, him seeing Kyera will give him the power to control her old power. It's just how his abilities work. And if this sounds like a totally unique concept to you, and you didn't know this because you saw a death battle between Nightmare and Guts, and, well, Nightmare never did this in that battle, I know. That's a pretty big fucking problem because it's like his main power in the games. And they completely ignored the fact that he could totally copy all of Guts' abilities and power levels. That fight was absolutely baffling to me. Nightmare is stupidly fucking powerful. So yeah, that's basically it. I mean, Nightmare is only limited in his power because of the universe he exists in. He exists on one planet that doesn't have that high of a power level, and he just absorbs the fighting style and powers that characters there have. But if you put him in a universe as large and expansive as Marvel with all of the different crazy powers they have, and then he just starts copying that shit, the amount of power that he can acquire will, be damn near limitless. It will only be limited by the universe that he's in. People sleep on Nightmare, man, but he's like one of the strongest video game characters. Like, he's really impressive. But that's gonna be all from me. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like, subscribe, comment, share, and join the membership. If you join the membership, you get videos early. And always remember, y'all stay safe out there, you hear?